Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for joining us today at Frank Family Vineyards. My name is Liam Garrity. I'm the Director of Hospitality here in the tasting room. And I'm so happy you're joining us on this beautiful Thursday. We've had the pleasure of sharing our wines and our staff and our team here with you over the last few months. Rich and Leslie Frank joining us, Todd Graff, our winemaker, and Corey Gardner, our assistant winemaker, joining us as well. And today I'm very happy to be able to introduce you to four of our hospitality specialists from the tasting room, the folks who are here welcoming guests every day and sharing our wonderful wines and our wonderful property with you. Today I'll be joined by our wine club manager, Brian Catlett, our newest addition to the wine education team, Olivia Ludke, and two of our seasoned veterans here in the tasting room, Mike Freitas and John Ruch. These four will be sharing their favorite wines here at the winery, as well as their secret tips, tricks that they've learned through years of hospitality and sharing wine with guests, and I'm really looking forward to it. As with all of our tastings, we'll be asking some trivia questions throughout the broadcast, so if you're watching along at home, I encourage you to pay attention, because with each one of these trivia questions, the correct winner, the first person to answer the question correctly in the chat section of our Zoom call, will receive a $100 gift certificate to a wine purchase here. I want to just take a minute and tell you about what we're doing here at the winery. We're inside today, but of course, all of our tastings and all of the guests that we're seeing, we're doing safely outside on our expansive property. We're welcoming guests in our picnic area, outside in our courtyard area, as well as guests on our beautiful back patio. So if you're thinking about planning a trip to Napa Valley, I encourage you to call us and let us know. You'll be on your way, and we would love to see you here. Today we're going to start with Brian Catlett. And if you're a wine club member, I'm sure you're familiar with Brian through phone calls and emails that he sends out letting you know about the various wine club shipments that are upcoming. But for those of you who aren't members, I think this will be a great chance to get to know a very important person here at the winery. Brian, how are you?
I'm good, Liam. Thanks.
Today you're going to be sharing with us a special wine, a wine called the Riley. Tell us a little bit about it.
So the Riley is a Merlot blend that we make here at the winery for our wine club. It's 68% Cab, 24%, 68% Merlot, 24% Cab, 8% Cab Franc. It sees about 21 months in French oak, 50% of it new, 50% of it second year. The fruit is primarily sourced from our Benjamin Vineyard, as well as some of our grower partners in the valley that best showcase Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Cab Franc in the valley.
So this is a Merlot Cab blend. This is sometimes we call this style of wine a Bordeaux blend, or just a red wine. In fact, that's how we label it. We label this the Riley Red Blend. And the blend that we're talking about is a blend of Merlot, Cab Franc, and these are the grapes that kind of make up the region of Bordeaux, France. Merlot, Brian, tell us about it, because you don't see a lot of Merlot these days. But I think there's a lot to learn about Merlot, and I think there's a lot that our fans love about this wine, and they love receiving it in their shipments.
Perfect. Well, Merlot, I'm not sure if a lot of people know this, but the word Merlot actually stands for little blackbird in French. Huh. So a very fun fact about the grape. It's a thin-skin grape. It's grown in multiple regions around the world. Has beautiful fruit. It also ripens faster than Cabernet Sauvignon on average, so we're always harvesting Merlot before Cabernet. Merlot, unfortunately, over the years, has probably gotten a bad reputation because it's been widely planted, mass-produced. The wines in the past have really been kind of flabby, not a lot of character, and just not great. But in the last 10 years, we've seen a lot of winemakers make Merlot on par to rival Cabernet Sauvignon. It's a great wine. It's versatile with food. You can pair it with white dark meat chicken, turkey, and pork. It goes with beef, your weeknight spaghetti, your pizza.
Kind of an all-purpose wine.
Correct. And that's why I love it so much. You don't have to worry about opening it in the middle of the week. It's great to share with friends. You could bring it to a restaurant and be confident that it's going to pair with all the foods that you may enjoy. So it's always one of my go-to wines in general when I'm deciding what to have with dinner.
Dynamite. This is a wine that we probably wouldn't see a lot of poured on the daily basis in the tasting room because it's one of our club exclusive wines. Tell us about some of those, Brian.
So our club exclusives, we make the Riley strictly for our wine club. It's one of the main wines. Then we also make the Lewis Vineyard Pinot Noir that Olivia is going to talk about. Then we also make three different vineyard designate Chardonnays, our Lewis Vineyard Chardonnay, our Beckstoffer Chardonnay, our San Giacomo Chardonnay. We make the Chillis Valley Zin, which Mike's going to talk about. And then we also make our RHF Cab that John's going to talk about. And those are just most of them. And then we also make 2 vineyard designate Cabernets, a Calistoga Cabernet and a Mount Veeder Cabernet. And for the first time, our wine club's actually going to get an Oakville Cabernet in our fall allocations, which I'm really, really excited about.
Hey, that's pretty exciting. So club members are going to receive something that they've never even had before, something I haven't even had.
Correct.
I'm looking forward to tasting that.
Exactly. And the cool thing about these wines is as a club member, you folks get them first. The winery, the tasting room doesn't even see them if we sell out of them, which often these wines do. So, if you're a fan of these wines, when you get them in your wine club shipment, enjoy them and, pick them up while you can.
Dynamite. Brian, in all your years of sharing wine with guests, any tips, any tricks of the trade that you want to share with our guests today?
Yeah, I have one. It's kind of my go-to for whenever I'm opening a bottle of wine, is that I use an Osso. Now, the Osso, I'm going to use a bottle of wine right here. So what you do is you take the 2 prongs of the Osso and you put the first prong on the edge of the cork, stick it in, put the other one on the second side, and then you slowly wiggle it down. You don't want to do this because it will shove the cork into the bottle of wine and cause a mess. You don't want to do that.
Brian, is that not a typical corkscrew?
It's not a typical corkscrew. What this does, this is a corkscrew that if you use so that you don't damage the cork at all, and it preserves the cork. This is mainly used for if you open up old bottles of wine that you're worried about the integrity of the cork, because often enough when an older bottle's been laying around for more than a decade maybe, part of the cork might be soaked through. So what you do is you gently wiggle this down through the cork to the bottom, and then what this does is that these 2 prongs release the friction from the cork and the glass, and then what you do is you gently pull and twist, further releasing the friction, and then you slowly pull the cork out, boom, and you're done. And you have the full cork, just like this, in your Osso.
Oh, that's pretty nice.
It's beautiful. I can't tell you how many times, with a corkscrew that I've damaged a cork, breaking it out, and you're left with half a cork left in here, which is really hard to get out. And I'm sure most of us have done that. Opening wine. So I invite people to try one of these. You can pick one up for probably $10. You can also pay as much as $150, depending on who you want to buy it from. But it's a great opener. And also, you can use it to open up other things on the other end.
Like a beer bottle?
Like a beer bottle.
Sure.
It's great.
Todd's got a great saying. He says, it takes a lot of beer to make great wine.
It does, especially during harvest.
Yeah, exactly.
So great opener. I can't recommend this more. I use this all the time. I virtually don't even use regular corkscrews anymore.
That's amazing, because I've never, I used to use that tool back in the day when I was a bartender, because we would use it on old port bottles, just like Brian said. An older bottle, that cork could be not damaged per se, but when you lay a bottle on its side, over time, the wine in contact with the cork is just going to slowly get absorbed. It's actually a good thing because it keeps the cork from drying up. If a cork were to dry up, there would be essentially paths for air to travel through the bottle that could ultimately damage the wine. So with those old corks from those port bottles, we would actually use a tool like that. But I've never really used it on a bottle of wine. And I probably should. You say you can get that at any wine shop? Pretty much any wine shop. Beverage retailer of your choice will more than likely have one. Even your local grocery store might have one. Now, Brian, you here at the winery, you're the wine club manager. Tell us a little bit more about that. You're not necessarily down here every day sharing wine on a daily basis, but your work behind the scenes, tell us about it. So the wine club for Frank Family Vineyards
is a great way for our guests to get wine twice a year to your door as easily as possible at a savings. And it's a pre-release club. So most of the wines you get are released to the wine club first, again, before the taste room even sees them. And hopefully they don't see some of these wines because they're made for just the wine club.
Today we wanted to do something special and share a wine that in this package and in this tasting that many of you maybe have never known about, never heard about. And the Riley Red Blend is Merlot based, a little riper, a little brighter, a little fresher than our Cabernet, and also, just like Brian said, a little softer in terms of its tannins and its structure. This wine is going to come across the palate with less of that energy that a young cab shows, and just makes it very food friendly and very versatile in terms of when and how we drink it. Riley, of course, named in honor of someone, or tell us about that, Brian.
So Riley is named after Rich and Leslie's German Shepherd rescue, late German Shepherd rescue dog that was one of Rich's favorite dogs at the winery.
Named after his German Shepherd. Yeah.
Correct.
Riley was a beautiful dog. I always thought that Riley had a little bit of collie in him because Riley had the most beautiful face. He looked like he was wearing eyeliner, and he had this long and elegant muzzle. His nose was just so beautiful. Riley was a very, very sweet dog. I'm sure many of you who visited us at the winery saw him running around. A dearly missed soul that we miss here at the winery. Brian, thank you for sharing your favorite wine and your favorite tips for service. Thank you. Great to have you here today.
Thank you.
Next up, I'd love to introduce, and this is fun for me because we really don't get to do this a lot at the winery, a new team member. So many people who come to Frank Family and come back to Frank Family do it because they form friendships, relationships, understandings with our staff. And we really are lucky here at the winery to have what I consider to be the very best staff in hospitality. People know Frank Family Vineyards makes incredible wine. We want to make our guest experience here on par with the quality of the wine. And we have a staff that's able to do that every day. Olivia Ludke, the newest member of our staff, we are so happy that you're joining us.
So grateful to be here. This team is absolutely incredible. And I have the lovely joy of showing off our 2017 Lewis Vineyard Pinot Noir.
Now,
sorry,
go
ahead. Not at all.
Your background in wine and your journey in wine, Pinot Noir, that's what you chose. And these are relatively new wines to you. So what gravitated you towards our Pinot Noir?
Absolutely. So to kind of rewind a little bit, I'm far from home. I'm a Midwesterner. I am from Wisconsin, and my background is in biology. Certainly there is an agricultural aspect to Wisconsin. So when I wanted to get into wine and winemaking in the industry, of course I moved to the Mecca, that is Napa. There are such beautiful locations, soil types, and microclimates to produce interesting and different varieties. And Pinot Noir is so incredible because it's versatile and it's really honing in on the south end of Napa Valley, the cooler climate of Carneros.
Where our Lewis Vineyard is.
Exactly right. So when you look at Napa, north to south, there's two beautiful mountain ranges and a valley floor between. We're talking about the far south end of the valley. So Carneros is closer to the ocean, actually touching the bay. So we get this beautiful Pacific influence of fog coverage and moisture. And when we talk about Pinot Noir, it is a thinner skin variety. It's delicate, and winemakers will even say it's finicky. So a troublesome but rewarding grape if you get it right. Our Lewis Vineyard hits the perfect points of Pinot Noir. So as you are noticing the nose, the nuances, the flavors of this wine, what you will receive is this beautiful balance of fruit and of tension. And if you make a Pinot in a sloppy way and don't have it done correctly and in the right location, it can fall apart on you. Luckily, being in Carneros, we are in this prime growing location with clay, loamy soils. It's a strugglesome and dense soil type. The yields are low, but the fruit quality is incredible. So nuances of cherry, red fruit. You'll get this kind of herbal tone, warm spices. And again, it is a thinner skinned grape, so you're not going to get full potent power, but you will get a little tension and grip. Quite interesting along the palate with a smooth, silky finish.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, quite beautiful.
Can't wait to have it. Did you say your degree was a science degree?
Correct. Biology, ecology and environmental biology.
So was it a path through that led you to wine kind of organically? Was it the soil and thinking about the growing of things? It's an interesting transition career-wise. I'm eager to hear about it.
Absolutely. It's been quite a journey. After school, I was in a lot of research programs and I moved out to Colorado. I landed in a fruit and wine industry on the Western Slope. And I got to dabble a little bit with some cellar operations. And I figured if I want to go full force into winemaking, I better move to the Mecca. That is Napa. When we think about the United States, there's certainly beautiful little pockets of grape growing, but Napa is the ultimate domain. And when we look at the sub-appellations, the soil types, the microclimates and uniqueness, there's so much to offer here. And really, these are world-renowned wines.
Olivia, there's a lot of talk about, I think, with Pinot Noir in particular, the idea of old world versus new world. Burgundy, the region in France, or Bourgogne, famous for their Pinot Noirs. Carneros, Napa Valley, Sonoma Coast, Anderson Valley, some Northern California growing regions, also famous for their Pinot Noirs. But the wines are different. Did you ever travel through Europe? Have you ever visited some of the regions?
I did. I actually, just a couple years ago with my family, I had this wonderful opportunity to fly into Paris and to tour into Burgundy and Champagne. We made it all the way over to Normandy. But what really captivated my heart was these beautiful Pinot Noir growing locations. And when you think about Pinot, it is an ancient grape. It's about 1,000 years old. It's older than our Bordeaux selection. So there's been time for Pinot Noir to mutate. And so we have this gorgeous clonal variation of Pinots. Certainly here in the valley, you're going to find a lot of Dijon clones, which we certainly work with. But when you think about the history of Pinot, we talk about not only Dijon and Burgundy clones, but heritage clones. And way back in the day when it was still kind of okay to do, folks would put little clippings and snippings in their suitcases and bring them here to the valley. And we have this gorgeous array of plantings and clonal variation to give us this gorgeous array of Pinot. So when I think about Napa Valley and California Pinot Noir, I think about bright red fruit flavors. I think about acidity and approachability. But that can lean all the way into Burgundy category of Pinot Noir, which will be rich, more powerful selections, excellent for aging. We'll notice more of the dark fruit, tobacco characteristics, and some of those earthy mushroom and truffle flavors. So I also call Pinot Noir a hug in a glass because it is so approachable and beautiful. But also when you're having people over, friends and family, you think about our holiday dinners and all the different food types being passed around, you can have this gorgeous array of Pinot that can almost match up with any sort of food type you're bringing to the table.
That's dynamite. Holidays in Wisconsin, growing up, was there a lot of Pinot Noir on the table?
Oh my gosh, Pinot Noir is absolutely incredible. And of course, I always like to mix in here that when we're talking about our sparkling wine selections, we're talking about Chardonnay and we're talking about Pinot. So start off your dinner that way with a fun, bubbly selection. And then when we get into those full meal types, your creamy cheeses and charcuterie, we can talk about, beef and pasta dishes, wild game, which Wisconsin, venison, duck, you name it. Pinot Noir has an array of flavor to match up with all of those individual food types. And not only that, it's a palate pleaser. Friends and family, I don't know what everyone is going to enjoy. Put Pinot on the table because that will agree with many folks in style and flavor.
That's amazing. That's great information, Olivia. I love your take on the clones. When tasting wine, it's easy to gloss over some of the specifics and and kind of steer away from that. But I think that's wonderful information to share with guests, to share with us today. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. There are hundreds of clones. It is absolutely incredible the variation there is in Pinot Noir.
That's amazing. I'd like to take a minute before we continue to talk about these wines and continue to taste these wines at home to test your listening skills and run a trivia question by you. So we've listened to Brian and Olivia. The first trivia question I'd like to ask for those of you paying attention at home, and again, you'll answer in the chat section of our Zoom, and the first person to correctly answer in the chat will receive a $100 coupon for Frank Family Vineyards wine. The first question is, what is the major benefit of using the So wine opener? Marissa McCann and Kelsey Harris from our marketing department are here with us today. They are monitoring our chat section. If you'd like, while we're talking, if you have any questions for our wine educators, the chat section is a wonderful way to pose those questions, and we'll answer those online the best we can. Do we have an answer from our team? Yes, Marissa.
Dennis Sajonka says, saves the cork.
Dennis, saves the cork. Absolutely right. Thank you for paying attention. Thank you for listening, and thank you for watching our broadcast, Dennis. Great to have you with us today. Dennis, tomorrow or the next day, Marissa or Kelsey from our marketing department will be sending you an email notifying you of your coupon. Thank you. Olivia, great oh, yeah.
One question.
Oh, we have a question. Wonderful, guys. Thank you for asking questions. Marissa?
John Brooks says, should Pinot Noir be chilled a bit before opening?
That's a wonderful question. So John asks about the temperature of Pinot Noir, and can you chill it? Olivia, do you want to answer that?
Absolutely, yes. 55 degrees Fahrenheit is pretty perfect to start your Pinot Noir off at. When I think about these summertime days and I want a red wine, my go-to is Pinot. So no harm, no foul. If you want a little more chill on that Pinot Noir, not a problem. More of the bouquet will open up in the wine as you bring it to room temperature. You can even do that by holding on to the bottom of the bowl, kind of holding the wine in your hand. And as you adjust the temperature, you will notice different layers, different characteristics come out through the wine. But again, going back to having a little chill on that wine, go for it. Do what you enjoy, truly.
Great. That's a great point. You are going to drink a bottle of wine over the course of time, starting a Pinot Noir, maybe a little crisper, maybe a little more chilled, and then watching that wine evolve and transform as it is exposed to air, and as the temperature of the glass and the temperature of the wine rises, is, I think, a fun little journey to take. Great question. Thank you. Well, thank you, Olivia. And let me just say thank you and welcome to our team. It is wonderful to have you here, and I know our guests are looking forward to coming and sharing our wines with you here at the property and hearing more of your incredible journey in wine and your wonderful hospitality tips.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
That's great. Great. Next up on our wine tasting adventure today, we're going to be talking with Mike Freitas. Many of you are familiar with Mike. Mike has been with us at Frank Family for 8 years. And Mike has a fabulous journey through the industry, through the hospitality industry, but also through other sections of our wine industry that I'm eager to talk to him about today. Mike, what wine will you be sharing with us?
Well, I am going to be sharing the 2017 Chiles Valley Zinfandel Reserve.
This is a wine that you chose as one of your favorites here from our Reserve collection. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, for everyone who's tasted with me in the past, everyone knows I love Winston, but my addendum to that is that I drink more Zinfandel than anything else we produce. And I'd like to start by first applauding Olivia and welcoming her and her passion to this. And I think that's why our people keep coming back here. The wines are phenomenal, but the experience from people like that is really the key that sets us apart from other places here in the Valley to come visit. So welcome, Olivia. I love the Zinfandel because to me it talks about family, it talks about friends. And that really communicates to me. As we come out of this shelter in place, and I spent 2.5 months with my family, and we were grilling every night, cooking every night at home. And Zin is a wine that just speaks to me in those terms.
Zin is a grape that once upon a time was widely planted throughout Napa Valley. And a lot of people, I think, Mike, have this connotation that Zinfandel is a quote-unquote California grape. But there's actually a little bit more history behind there, isn't there?
It's a grape with a lot of history. It's one of the first grapes planted here. It was smuggled in the 1850s. It's a grape that loves the Northern California, warm climates, large productions. And when it really was the grape of prohibition in Napa Valley, a lot of people don't realize that was a grape that you could grow in bulk and you could ship to the East Coast where it was being fermented and turned into wine back there during Prohibition. And I think that's why for a lot of people, it still has kind of a bad connotation. We think about kind of a lot of times those in the Central Coast, the hot, almost boozy Zinfandels of the 70s and the 80s. And so a lot of people got that stuck in their mind. Then we transformed into the white Zinfandel. And
before you go on, Mike, so just so we're all clear, white Zinfandel is made from red Zinfandel grapes. It is a blush wine, but a sweeter blush wine. And I think that's maybe why, because it is engineered to be on the sweet side, people kind of associate that sweetness with red Zinfandel. And that's really not necessarily the case.
It's not the case at all. In fact, a lot of Zinfandels tend to be more spicy, because Zin loves that heat and prospers in that heat. A lot of times, if you leave them too long in the Central Coast where you don't cool, or in the Central Valley, I should say, where you don't cool down at night, you have to pick prematurely, otherwise your sugar is too high, and then your alcohol is going to be too high. But when you're picking a little early, you've got green seeds, green skins, and then you're going to get that spicy pepperiness that comes through. I think what makes Chiles Valley great up here in Napa, and Chiles Valley, for those who aren't aware, is it's a little valley up in the Vaca Mountains, just northeast of Napa. It's kind of a valley. It's like in a valley, basically. It retains heat from Central Coast, but still gets enough of that breeze that it cools down at night. And that allows us to get an extensive time of ripening on the vines to where we get all that rich red fruit and not the big spiciness of a Central Valley Zinfandel.
That's a great point. With all of these wines that come from Napa Valley, it's a little bit like the old adage on real estate. It's about location, location, location. The best wines happen when the right grape is grown in the right climate. As Mike was mentioning, Chiles Valley as an AVA or American viticultural area, high elevation in the Vacas Mountains, a lot of heat during the day. And that's important for the Zin wine because the Zin grape requires a lot of heat to ripen. But as Mike was saying, the cool down, and that cool down helps manage some of that sugar production, helps manage some of that overabundance of sweetness, and help build that backbone of acidity that makes for what I would consider to be a really fresh and bright and energetic Zinfandel, like what we have here.
So I totally agree with that last statement. I think for all of our wines, all of them are balanced and clean, and that's what makes these wines work so well. We take that rich, ripe, like red berry. We add some Petit Syrah, about 10%. Nice integration of oak, 16 months, half new, half neutral. And you just get this really wonderful sweet and savory dynamic that's perfect with anything on the grill, anything on charcoal, spicy foods, any of those things. And if you look at the history again, it is genetically identical to the Primitivo, which came originally from Italy. And if you look at tomato sauces and what they did, and garlics and spices, it's easy to see how it transcends into if you've got ribs going or you've got something over charcoal or, a barbecue sauce or any of those foods as well.
Mike, I am getting so hungry listening to you talk right now. I want to hear your thoughts on a little bit more about pairing Zinfandel because it is, I think, a very food-friendly wine. But before we get going down that path and talking about how Zin and food work together, I want to take a minute and check with our audience and make sure that you've been listening because I have another opportunity for you to answer a trivia question. And again, the first person to answer correctly in our chat section will be the winner of that $100 coupon in wine from Frank Family Vineyards. This question is about our newest member, Olivia Ludke. What state did Olivia come from? Do we have an answer?
Yes.
Do we have a winner?
Justin Krigler.
Justin Krigler. Justin, what is the answer? Wisconsin, that's right. Olivia is from Wisconsin, my neighbor, because I am from Minnesota. So Mike, you really got me going. Thank you, Justin. Thank you for watching. I apologize. Thank you for watching, Justin. Thank you for paying attention. Kelsey and Marissa will be reaching out to you to talk to you and send you the information you need. Mike, you really got me going on this talk about food because Zinfandel has these characteristics. But I wanted to ask you, when you're grilling, because you sounded like you really know what you're doing, what's your favorite thing to cook in the summertime outside?
Oh man, I was lucky enough to buy a 36-inch outdoor grill and a smoker recently. Last night we did halibut tacos, bacon wrapped asparagus, artichokes, and some kimchi fried rice. And with that little bit of heat from the kimchi and the spice on the fish, a great zin like that is just perfect to tame that and work with it.
Yeah, work with it. What a great way to say it. Food and wine, they really do, it's about how they work together. It's about how they balance each other, juxtapose each other, offset each other. I love thinking about dinner as an exercise in building from the bottle up. We've got this bottle of wine, haven't exactly known when to drink it. Let's look at it and maybe do a little research online, maybe call our friends at Frank Family Vineyards and plan a meal out around this bottle. Zin is gonna be great for that. Mike, as I mentioned at the beginning, you've been with us for 8 years, and you have so many guests who come here year after year and so look forward to their time tasting with you. But your journey in wine is much longer than 8 years. Do you want to tell us a little bit about you?
Sure, I probably have a very different journey than most people who get into this industry. I graduated from college, worked for Christian Brothers Winery, had gone to Christian Brothers High School, and knew that I loved this industry, but also at the time, it was the late 80s, early 90s, realizing I had to go outside to get experience and then transfer back in laterally at a later point. So it actually took me away from wine. I worked for PepsiCo for 7 years, worked on projects like Fiji Water and All Sport, worked for Kellogg's for about 5 years, then got back into beverage when I worked for Franklin Distilleries out of San Jose. We were importers, exporters, and also we're the largest distiller in the West Coast. I floundered with that, and after about 15 years or so of that experience, realized I was kind of over the distribution side. Brands coming and going, really no loyalty. You know, you taste through most winery portfolios, and you find there's only maybe 2 out of the 10 wines you really enjoy. So I was looking for a change in my life. And then one day was in the produce department at a grocery store here in town 8 years ago. Ran into a gentleman who's a headhunter in town for the wine industry. Had known him, and we started talking, and he asked what I was doing, and we exchanged numbers. And then literally I got home, and 10 minutes later my phone rang, and he said, "Hey, I just got an email from Frank Family, and they're looking for someone. I think you'd be good for the job. Would you mind going out there tomorrow?" I showed up the next day. I spoke to them. I came back the following day. I hung around for about 2 hours, came back day 3, signed my paperwork, and I've been here ever since.
That's great, Mike.
So a little different journey.
That's a great story. What's your favorite part of the job?
Boy, there's a lot of good things to this job. And I think especially working outside of here, it really puts things into perspective. And working with our team, we have a tremendous team here. And not only are they good, they're all completely different. It's not a cookie cutter. Every time, if you come and taste a Cabernet with John, that's different than having Cabernet with Marcos or Zahava or anybody else. So to get those individual takes and perspectives is wonderful. The wines are incredible. I don't think there's a bad wine in the lot. And I don't think you can say that about many wineries here in the Valley. And the experience and people that come here, they know that. That's why they come back. The welcoming feeling, it really, it's corny, but it really is a family. And that it shows itself in how we act, how we perform, the quality of our products, and how we treat our guests here every day.
That's great. Yeah, I love it. You're absolutely right. Frank Family makes dynamite wines. That is non-debatable. And we have wonderful people that we work for, Rich and Leslie Frank, Todd Graff, and Corey Gardner, our assistant winemaker. Wonderful people to work for. But for me, beyond the wine, the people that we get to work with every day really make this job special. I agree 100%. Mike, any other tips, any other insider secrets, hidden gems of Napa Valley for our guests in the Bay Area who may be coming to visit us soon?
Well, there's always new places opening. So if anyone gets a chance to go to the Four Seasons, I'd love to hear how that's going.
Oh, wow. Is that open yet?
I don't believe so, but it's supposed to be open in about 3 months, just north of us on Silver Route Trail.
That's right, up in
So
California.
it'll be a beautiful property for people to come visit.
Mike, thanks for sharing your journey. And Mike, thank you for sharing your wine, the 2017 Chiles Valley Zinfandel.
It's my pleasure, and I hope to see all of you here again soon.
Great. John Ruch. John Ruch, how are you, my friend?
I'm perfect. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad that you're here with us today. I'm happy to be sharing this day with you. I'm happy to be sharing these wines with you here. The wine that you'll be sharing with us today, could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, so this is the 2017 RHF Rutherford Cab. It's a brand new vintage of this wine for us. RHF, of course, stands for the founder of the winery, Richard Harvey Frank. And fruit for this wine, and I have decanted this wine, by the way, because it's a brand new wine. We just started pouring this when we got back from our little break around the beginning of June. So it's a new vintage. I wanted to open it up, give it some air, kind of get some of the different things going on in there. It's all Rutherford fruit from 2 of our vineyards in the Rutherford AVA, which is a unique growing area in Napa. The original hillside estate vineyard called Winston Hill, which is in the Vaca range in Rutherford. It's 25 hillside acres. We've got some of the fruit from that in this wine, as well as fruit from our Benjamin vineyard, which is on the valley floor in Rutherford, about a half a mile away.
John,
Winston Hill. Yes, sir.
Before you continue, John, just because I think it's a really fascinating topic of conversation, and I don't want our guests at home who have questions about this not to have the opportunity to hear you talk a little bit more about it. You started this by saying that you decanted the Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit more about that process, about why you chose to do that with a young Cabernet. What are you looking to achieve by decanting it? And when, for our viewers at home, when should we make that decision? And how would we read the signs of a wine to know that the wine would benefit from that process of decanting?
So as I said, this is a 2017 vintage. It was just released, and it's a young wine. And it's been in the bottle for about a year now, actually a little more than a year now. And I wanted to give it some air. I wanted to open it up a bit. So with a young wine, what I do with a young wine, open it up, and I'm gonna really shake the wine out of the bottle into the decanter, give it a nice swirl. I love these decanters because it's the kind of decanter that, if you drop this in the sink and you break it, it's okay. You get another one. You don't need one that looks like a swan, dinosaur, something like that. Very utilitarian to be able to give it some air. A big wine like Cabernet blend, of which this is mostly Cab, little Petit Verdot, little Merlot in there. It's really going to benefit. It's really going to open up. You're going to get a lot more aromatics out of a really young wine by giving it some air and decanting it.
What about an older wine? Would you do the same treatment if the wine had, maybe if it was a 2010 or a 2012 vintage?
Yes, so an older wine, I'm going to decant for a different reason. And over time, sediment in the wine is going to settle into the bottom of the wine. Of course, you're going to store those older wines on their side so you can keep the cork moist. And what we're going to do is set that wine up for a day before you open it and let particulate matter go down to the bottom of the bottle. And then I'm going to very slowly pour that wine off the sediment into the decanter. All right. And the idea there is so that you don't get the sediment in the bottom. The sediment's not going to hurt you. It's just sometimes, you get that last sip out of the glass and there's some sediment in there. Might not be the most pleasant thing on your palate. It's not bad for you, but we do want to let that particulate matter settle out in an older wine.
John, I have definitely been on the wrong end of a glass full of sediment more than one time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Not gonna hurt you, but not the last experience you want from a bottle of wine that you've been looking forward to.
Right.
Now, John, this is our Rutherford Cabernet, and Napa Valley divided into 16 neighborhoods. Olivia mentioned the neighborhood Carneros. Mike has been talking about the neighborhood Chiles Valley. Tell us a little bit more about Rutherford and why the term Rutherford is a point of distinction and something that we're very proud to have on our bottle.
Right, so Rutherford's a small part of Napa. Not a lot of grapes planted in Rutherford. 70% of what's planted in Rutherford is Cabernet. It kind of is really defines the history of Napa Valley in that you have iconic wineries there like Inglenook, which goes back to the late 1800s, and of course Beaulieu Vineyards. And these are wineries that kind of started the Napa and are known for Cabernet. Andrei Chelichev from BV famously said, it takes Rutherford dust to make a great cab. And to me, this wine shows that really, really well. It's soft on the palate. I've had good working for a number of wine. They describe that Rutherford dust as like a cocoa-like character. So a lot of dark fruits in this, some dark chocolates, and you definitely pick up that cocoa-like nature to the wine that you won't get in Oakville to the south, which is a little cooler, or St. Helena to the north, which is a little warmer. Rutherford's only about 3 miles square. Again, we have 2 vineyards in the Rutherford AVA. We have the Winston Hill Vineyard, and some of those grapes are in this wine, Hillside Vineyard. We also have Benjamin Vineyard, named for one of the Frank's grandkids, on the valley floor, only half a mile away from there. RHF, another good thing about that. Hillside and
the 2 vineyards that come together to produce this wine.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. What would you pair this with, John? If you were
classic pairing like this, a lot of tannin, thick-skinned grape. I'm going to have a ribeye, a New York strip or something like that. I would have this with a piece of dark chocolate too. I would have this with some hard cheeses are going to be great. Wonderful wine. Very soft on the palate for something such a young wine.
John, I'd like to take a quick break in our discussion about this flagship wine from Frank Family Vineyards to test our audience one more time on their listening skills and pose a trivia question. The first person watching to answer this trivia question correctly in our chat section will be the winner. This trivia question comes from Mike's Tasting. We know it as Zinfandel, but the old world name for this grape, what is it? First person to answer correctly will win that prize. Okay. Marissa, do we have a?
Erin Luckett again.
Erin Luckett. How are you, Erin?
She's a winner.
And the answer was? Primitivo. Yeah, Primitivo. Not primitive in the sense that it's very old. The term Primitivo for this grape actually implies the length of time. It was named for its long need to ripen. The grape grown in what is essentially the boot of Italy, the Umbria region of Italy, where it's hottest. This grape Primitivo, which has been genetically tested. In fact, it was here in Northern California at the University of California Davis campus that the wine or grape scientists first made that DNA connection, tracing the Zinfandel grape back to its original lineage in Primitivo. It requires a lot of heat to ripen, and that length of time that the grape needed on the vine gave it its name. Well, congratulations, Erin. Thank you for watching today, and thank you for paying attention. Oh, yes, do we have a question?
We have a question from William Stevenson. He lives in Alabama, and he would like to know what he has to do to get our wine club shipped to him.
Brian, I'm going to defer that to you because you are the behind-the-scenes master at all things logistics in our club.
So just give me a call and we can get you signed up for the club. It's as easy as that.
Yeah. Hey, Alabama is one of the states that's got a couple of additional regulations that we strictly adhere to, but we get it done, and we would be happy to get it done for you. Brian is available here for our members. Brian is here and available for our non-members who have questions about that membership program and about the various benefits of it. And I encourage you to reach out to us here at the winery if you have any other questions like that. John, going back to this idea of Rutherford and then tying it into our club conversation, Todd Graff, our winemaker here at Frank Family Vineyards, is a master at working with those vineyards that we have, the vineyards that we own, like the Benjamin and the Winston Hill, but he also has incredible relationships with growers who, here in the Napa Valley, whose sole purpose is, or sole job, as it were, is to grow the very best fruit in the valley. Our club members this fall will be the first to receive Frank Family's Oakville Cabernet. And John, you had talked about how Oakville and Rutherford were neighbors. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Oakville region? Is that something that you're comfortable talking about?
Sure, yeah. So Oakville, a little bit to the south. You know that in the Napa Valley, we have this very big temperature gradient between the cool Carneros region near the bay and up here in where we are, Calistoga, where it's generally about 20 degrees hotter than it is 25 miles south. So you have this incremental temperature. Oakville a little further south than Rutherford, a little bit cooler. You know, the other thing we got to talk about when we're talking about these different areas is east and west side of the Napa River, because you have different mountains on either side, and the valley floor, what's grown in the valley floor, is growing in the dirt that washed off of those mountains. And, you know, down in Oakville, on the east side, you see some real kind of bright orange soil, a lot of iron in there. You don't see that on the west side. Of course, on the west side is the famous Tokelon Vineyard that is just owned by Andy Beckstoffer, and a fabulous vineyard. So just different growing areas. One of the things that's kind of exciting about the wine club shipment in the fall is you get these cabs that are from these different regions in Napa, same vintage, same winemaker. And so a great thing to do is to sit down with some friends and taste those wines together. And that's how you're going to learn the difference between those different growing regions. Now, if you're in Rutherford and you're growing grapes in Rutherford, that's the best place for Cabernet on the planet. If you're in Oakville, some people are going to say that's the best place for Cabernet on the planet. So you know, kind of excited that Brian was telling us this year that we're going to see an Oakville cab in the fall wine club shipment, along with the RHF Rutherford cab, and I think a Calistoga cab. Is that correct, Brian? Correct. So that's going to be a great way to see how this same grape does in these different growing regions in Napa. And you know, one of the fun things about tasting Todd's wines is he knows these vineyards. He's been working with the grapes from a lot of these vineyards for 18 vintages now. So I know I'm looking forward to that, and just might have to join the wine club to get that Oakville cab. So
I think you might have to. I think that wine is very strictly allocated, and I'm looking forward to my opportunity to taste it, and of course our opportunity here at the winery to share with our members. Well, thank you, John.
Sure.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts on the RHF. So RHF was the wine you chose to speak about here today. But given your druthers, what other Frank family wines would you be bringing home to share with your family? With your
well, I have to say, I just love the Brut Rosé. I tell people you could wake me up at 3 a.m. If you had a glass of Brut Rosé in your hand, I'd be like, oh, sure, fine, I'll have some of that. So refreshing, just always good. As Mike said, you know, everybody here loves the Winston Hill. That's a single vineyard wine, all from that fabulous hillside vineyard. And the interesting thing about Winston Hill is you don't see a lot of vineyards on that eastern hills facing to the southwest in Rutherford. It is a unique property and just a fabulous, fabulous grape growing place.
It really is. It's such a beautiful vineyard, our Winston Hill. Those of you who visit Napa Valley, drive by it right on the Silverado Trail, that gentle slope rising about 500 feet. You know, one of the things I love to talk about for wine educators, for those of us who have chosen to make our life about sharing wine and about sharing our enthusiasm and passion for wine, is the AHA bottle. And I can certainly tell you my AHA bottle. I remember, I don't remember much about the mid 2000s, but I remember a night with 3 friends at a restaurant in New York City called Del Frisco's in 2007. And we drank a 1997 Diamond Creek Volcanic Hill Napa Valley Cabernet from the Diamond Mountain growing region. And that really was for me my aha bottle, where I realized that a bottle of wine could could read on my palate like an incredible story, that it could taste and bring a sensation like looking at the work of a master painter on the wall of a museum. And I don't remember what I did the day before, and I don't remember what I did the day after, but I remember that night at Del Frisco's and the friends I was with when we shared that bottle of wine. And I wanted to pose to our wine educators today the same question. Was there a bottle of wine that changed your relationship to this, that put you on this path? Olivia, would you, I hate to put you on the spot because I know you're our newest member here, but is there a bottle of wine that you remember that you'd like to share with us?
I wouldn't say it was a specific bottle, but I know it was a Bordeaux selection. And while I was going to school, going to college, I worked as a barista at this beautiful store, and they would import cheeses and beers and wines. And of course, these bottles were quite expensive for a bunch of college kids. So I do remember these beautiful little moments where we would all together decide to purchase this, Napa bottle. And we would take it in back and get our little measurements out so all of us would have our individual ration. And this was between like 5 and 10 people. Sometimes it was just this tiny little increment. But we would take that sample home and taste it, and we would get together through Messenger or what have you and talk about the nuances of the wine and the little details and aspects of that selection. And I carried that all the way through my college career and into my first position in the wine industry. And I will remember that forever, those small little increments and samples that made me just want to learn more about wine and the history, and just carry that on through today. Wine is all about learning and that movement.
And those friends that you shared those special bottles with, I hope you're still in contact with them. I hope you still share wine with them when given the chance.
We're so proud that we can purchase that bottle on our own now and actually stock the cellar a little bit. So times have certainly changed, but it all started with that tiny little sample.
Mike, do you have a special bottle of wine that really kind of changed your view on this?
I do. I have an eye opener, and it kind of, looking back now, I see why I like the Winston Hill as much as I do. Growing up here, it's cab, and you went to the big boys, the big Napa cabs, and blends were just a very small piece of what Napa was doing back in the 80s and 90s. But I remember going with the staff up to a winery, and we drank a 1985 Cane 5. And just, it transported you to another place, and your eyes opened up. Oh my God, this is what blending can do. When the right grapes are put in the right hands, it just took you to another place and took you away. So that's the one wine that always sticks out to me.
It's a great story. Cane 5, what a fabulous producer. I feel okay saying that because Napa's got a wonderful spirit of camaraderie. That's one thing I love about the Napa Valley is we support each other. We love each other's wine. And that's a great way to be in business. That's a great way to say, yeah, I love Frank Family Wines, and I really enjoy a great bottle from another producer. We love tasting as a team, going to see another producer, seeing what they do, listening to their passion. Brian, tell us about your bottle. Tell us about the bottle of wine that put you on this path.
The bottle of wine that put me on this path was a bottle a friend of mine brought over Friday night. We would get together every other Friday, and he would bring bottles over, sometimes one, sometimes two, and he'd share them with me. And this is way before I worked in the wine industry. This is back in probably 2003, 2004. And he shared with me a bottle of a Bordeaux blend from Glen Ellen, California, which was from Benziger Winery, something called Tribute. The first vineyard designate Bordeaux blend wine I ever had. And it just really opened my eyes with what you could do with four of the Bordeaux varietals. I mean, it was amazing, multi-layered fruit, dense, unctuous. It was just an amazing experience. And luckily we had a good dinner to go with it. And it's the most memorable bottle of my life so far.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that, Brian. John, is there a bottle of wine that changed your path?
Absolutely, and actually, I'm gonna go that there were two, because there was one way back in the mid '80s. A friend of mine was working at a wine shop in the Boston area, and they did a wine dinner with 1966 Bordeaux, and it was like, wow. And I didn't really know anything about wine then, but it was like, I want to learn about wine now because that was pretty cool. And then a number of years later, I had a bottle of Navarro Pinot Noir from the Anderson Valley, and it just kind of was like, wow, California wines are fabulous. Just a wonderful wine. And again, to what Olivia was saying, that different areas in California where Pinot Noir is grown, it's very much a grape of place. And so I love, wines, Pinot Noir from the Anderson Valley, from the Russian River Valley, from Carneros. But I just remember distinctly a Navarro Pinot Noir just being like, wow, that's really great. So.
Thank you, John. That's great. I want to circle back on John and just test our audience to make sure that you've been paying attention all the way to the end, because we do have one more trivia question to ask, and it goes to John's wine, the RHF Cabernet. And the question is for our viewers, and again, the first person to answer this correctly in the chat section will be the winner. What do the initials RHF stand for? I hope for our watchers today at home, this is one that you should be able to answer pretty easily.
People, I think, were anticipating the question. We kind of
Do we have a winner?
We do. So Richard Harvey Frank, Warren Henderson.
Warren Henderson is the winner. Yes, Richard Harvey Frank, RHF, Richard H. Frank. The man who named the wine after his dog, the man whose vineyards are named after his grandchildren, stubbornly refused to have a wine named after himself until his lovely and beautiful wife Leslie stepped in when we were releasing our new wine in 2016, a new blend of Cabernet, Winston Hill plus the Benjamin. And we said, what are we going to name this? And Leslie said, you know what we're naming it? We're naming it after you, RHF, a special wine. I'm going to take a minute just real quick just to say thank you to our 4 wine educators today. Brian Catlett, our wine club manager, Olivia Ludke, our newest addition to the team here at Frank Family Vineyards, John Ruch and Mike Freitas, our wine educators. Thank you all of you at home. Oh, I see we have a question. I apologize. No. Oh, thank you so much. No question. Although if you have any questions, call me, call the winery, call us and let us know. We're open for business, guys. Our team is here to share our passion for wine and our wonderful product that we love to share with you all. We're safely tasting with guests outside. We're practicing all of our best safety protocols, which you can read about on our website, frankfamilyvineyards.com. We encourage you to come see us and come share your stories with us. To all of you watching, thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to have you here.